None of these virtues, nor any others which might be related to justice, were wanting to the Queen of Heaven. Of all these, she had the habit, and practiced them as occasion offered. Moreover, as the teacher and mistress of all sanctity, she instructed and enlightened many souls how they were to exercise and practice them with the greatest perfection. The virtue of gratitude toward God she exercised by acts of religion and worship, as we have already described, for this is the best way to show our gratitude toward him, and as the dignity of the most pure Mary and her concomitant sanctity was exalted above all created understanding, this eminent mistress gave a return of gratitude proportionate to his benefits within the measure possible to a creature. The same holds true in regard to her piety toward her parents and her country, as mentioned above. To her fellow men, this most humble princess returned thanks for each favor as if she deserved no consideration from anyone, and although all favors were due to her in justice, she nevertheless gave thanks for them with gracious affability. She alone knew and practiced this virtue to such an extent as to return thanks for injuries and offenses as if they were great benefits, for in her incomparable humility she never recognized anything as an injury, and considered herself under obligation for what really were such. Moreover, as she never forgot any benefit, she also never ceased in her gratitude. About the truthfulness of Mary Our Lady, little need be said, since she, who was so superior to the demon, the father of lies and deceit, could not tolerate even the shadow of that despicable vice. The standard by which the virtue of truthfulness is to be measured in our Queen is her dove-like charity and simplicity, which excluded all duplicity or deceit in her intercourse with creatures. And how could the guilt of deceit be found in the mouth of that lady, who with one word of truest humility, falling from her lips, drew down to her womb that one who is essential truth and holiness? In regard to the exercise of the virtue called vindication, the most holy Mary likewise was proficient, not only instructing others as a teacher during the time of the first beginnings of the evangelical church, but zealously advancing the honor of the Most High, and trying to convert many sinners through fraternal correction, as was the case in regard to Judas many times, and commanding the creatures, which were obedient to her wishes, to punish some of the sinners in order that they might be converted and be saved from the eternal punishment due to their sins. Although on these occasions she was most sweet and kind in her punishments, yet she did not remit them, whenever necessary, to secure an effective cleansing from sin. Most of all, however, she did exercise retribution toward the demon in order to free the human race from his slavery. The sovereign queen practiced also the most exalted liberality and friendliness. Her generosity in giving and distributing was on a scale befitting the Empress of all creation, and one who knows the proper value of all invisible and visible things. This lady never possessed anything of her own that she did not consider just as much the property of her neighbor as hers, nor did she ever deny anything to anybody, not even waiting till they should pay the price of asking for it, whenever she could be beforehand in giving. The poverty and miseries which she alleviated, the benefits which she bestowed, the mercies which flowed from her, even as regards only temporal matters, could not be recounted in an immense volume. Her amiable friendliness toward all creatures was so singular and admirable that, if she had not concealed it with rare prudence, she would have drawn to herself all the world, entranced by her most sweet intercourse, her mildness and kindness, though tempered by a divine seriousness and wisdom, displayed in her intercourse the marks of superhuman excellence. The Most High himself regulated this perfection in her, allowing at times some of the signs of the sacrament of the King to show themselves, but taking care that the veils should fall immediately and again conceal the mystery beneath earthly labors, thus forestalling the applause of men. All their honors were far below that which she deserved, and men would never be able to attain, and would fall either below or exceed, the correct measure of honor due to one who was at the same time a creature and the mother of God. This was reserved for the time when, as children of the Church, men should be enlightened by the Catholic faith. For the adequate and perfect exercise of this great virtue of justice, the doctors point out another part or aid to it, which they call epikeia, which guides us in some affairs that are above the common and ordinary rules and laws. For not all affairs, with their varying circumstances, can be covered by the ordinary laws, and therefore it is necessary to proceed on certain occasions by the light of a superior and extraordinary reasoning. This part of justice the sovereign queen practiced on many occasions during her life, both before and especially after the ascension of her only begotten Son. In order to regulate the affairs of the primitive church, as I will say in its place, she often made use of epikeia, as required by the interests of the Most High. Instruction vouchsafed by the Queen of Heaven. In this extensive virtue of justice, my daughter, although thou hast been taught much of its value, thou still art ignorant of the greater part of it on account of thy condition in this state of mortality, and therefore also this thy account of it is insufficient for a full understanding of its excellence. Nevertheless, thou hast in it a copious summary to direct thy intercourse with creatures and thy worship of the Most High. In regard to this latter, I remind thee, my dearest, that the supreme majesty of the Omnipotent is highly indignant at the offenses of mortals who forget the veneration, adoration, and reverence due to him. If some of them do render it, it is so coarse, inattentive, and discourteous that they do not merit reward but chastisement. They revere and adore profoundly the princes and magnates of the earth. They ask favors and seek to obtain them with the utmost diligence. They are effusive in their thanks when they succeed, protesting their lifelong gratitude. But the Supreme Lord, who gives them being, life, and activity, who preserves and sustains them, who has redeemed them and raised them to the dignity of sons, who wishes to confer upon them his own glory, who is in himself the infinite and the highest good, him, the highest majesty, they forget, because they cannot see him with their corporeal eyes. As if not all good came from him, they return, at the highest, merely a sluggish remembrance and a hasty thanksgiving. I will not even mention at present how much those offend the most just ruler of the universe, who wickedly break through and overturn all the order of justice toward their neighbor, perverting the whole natural order in wishing to their brothers what they would not wish for themselves. Abhor, my daughter, such execrable conduct, and as far as thy forces will allow, make up by thy works for this want of acknowledgment in the service of the Most High. And as by thy state of life thou art consecrated to the divine worship, let that be thy principal occupation and delight, striving to imitate the angelic spirits in their ceaseless fear and worship of the Lord. Preserve reverence for holy things, including also the ornaments and sacred vessels used in divine service. During divine office, prayer, and sacrifice, see that thou remain on thy knees, implore with faith, and receive his favors with humble thanksgiving. The same consideration thou shouldst show also to all men, even if they offend thee. To all, be kind, affable, meek, simple, and truthful. without deceit or double dealing, without detraction or ill will, without rash judgment of thy neighbor. And in order that thou mayest fulfill all justice, revive the memory of it constantly, and desire to do to thy neighbor that which thou wishest done to thyself. Especially remember how my most holy Son and I, in imitation of him, acted toward all men.